What's happening, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. I am that guy. I appreciate you guys as always. If you guys are new to the channel, please be a friend, tell a friend, like, share, and subscribe. It is hard to believe that we are at a 2-year mark for this 2023 Honda CRF250F. Yes, it is modified right now, and that is due to the fact of our friends over in Brazil, where these bikes are manufactured with force cam and the big bore kit. We are not getting into that though. We have a separate video for a 1-year full review on the big bore kit. We will have a full-on question and answer session. We are also going to go over some of their new developments and what they're currently working on. And we're going to answer a lot of stuff that has been asked over almost the past year since we have started promoting force cam's big bore kits. With that being said, what we are going to do is go over every single mod that is currently on this 250F. Yes, we have a lot of stuff done to it, and we have also raced this, not just in local hare scrambles, but also the GNCC. So as far as off-road goes, we have done a lot of different things. We've also ridden a lot of enduro, a lot of hard enduro with this thing, a lot of stuff that I would never even trust that Kawasaki that I've got. I have a 2024 KX250X. I will tell you in just a little bit what all I love, what I dislike. It's going to be a compilation essentially of a lot of our videos and what we've kind of put out in little snippets here and there. We're going to compile this all into one, as well as some mods you may want to stay away from that I have learned over modding this bike, and some mods that are an absolute must. Alright guys, as far as the front, we have some anchor fork extenders here for the front. Those are paired up with BBR heavy duty front fork springs, as well as some bar risers here in the front. Paired up with those bar risers and some grips that need replacing are some Mica Metals 1 1/8 oversized handlebars. Adding on from there is our Corona rear linkage and our rear shock cleat. I will go ahead and tell you guys, as well as in my prior video, is that the rear shock on this thing is the original shock, okay? It is the original shock. I did have the BBR heavy duty rear spring installed. However, due to sag purposes, I did end up removing that and put the original one back in. I was not getting hardly any sag at all with that BBR rear spring. I'm just not too heavy. I am 6'1" and I weigh about 185 pounds roundabout. So I will go ahead and just drop that here for anybody that is looking towards raising their bike up. It just gave me a little bit too much spring as far as some of these rock sections and things like that. Now, it did float really well, but I did get a lot of feedback in the rear, which I did not care for too much. As far as with the cleat on the rear, it really did help it out as far as compressing even that stock spring, and of course the Corona linkage. Now, I will go ahead and tell you is what I have raised it up. It is sitting about 2.5 inches above stock height right now. 2.5 inches may not seem like too much, but that is just in the overall bike height, okay? So for your taller riders, that may come into a real big advantage for you guys and what you're looking for, as well as don't ever forget that the seat cover that I currently run as well is by Guts Racing. We're going to show you that here in just a second, but you can also get some options on it. So along with raising this bike up 2.5 inches, I do have a stock Guts Racing seat cover. This thing is absolutely phenomenal. Anything as far as off-road riding and all that you are doing, this thing keeps you planted on the seat. It is phenomenal. I have them on Macawi. I have run them on every single bike I have ever owned. What I will say is, though, is that you guys can get a custom seat cover, but also a custom seat foam, okay? You can raise this bike up just a hair just from the actual seat foam itself. Now, I do run a slightly oversized seat on my Kawasaki, as well as a seat bump that I do run about 3/4 of the way down, but you can also have those same exact options for the CRF250F. You can raise this up here by about another inch or so, a little bit more than that, 1.5 inches, just from the seat itself, if you guys wanted to end up running that. So while it may not seem like too much, just raising a bike up, say I've got 2.5 inches as far as just the suspension goes, but if you also go with the seat cover, you could get about 3.5 inches total out of this bike. All right, guys, so the other elephant in the room, let's go ahead. We'll talk about the Yoshimura RS2 full exhaust system. Yes, we have that. We also have, for comfort purposes, teamed up with some of these oversized foot pegs. Now, I will go ahead and tell you that you can run the oversized CRF250F foot pegs. Okay, I've got a video that shows you what you need to modify if you are running a 230F foot peg on this thing, which is really not anything much. You just have to bend the spring just a hair more just to get it to fit right in there. And that's just for the pair the set that I had bought for this bike. Now, I know that there are some now 250F oversized foot pegs, but those are absolutely amazing with keeping you planted on this bike. When it comes down to the overall cost of what I've spent on this bike, I do have a video breakdown, and that is current to date, by the way, of what I have done with the bike, what it has cost me into the bike, and that does include the bore kit, of course. Now, just kind of showing you guys just a hair further, we have got, of course, what I just mentioned, these foot pegs. They are in black. Those, absolutely lifesaver. I love them. Now, we do have the Flatland Racing skid plate that a lot of people are a little bit controversial on. As far as your skid plates go, some people really like these Flatland skid plates. Some people don't like the fact that it has the extra weight, that you really need to put the bike on a diet, but the skid plate does no favors for you. And as you will see with this Yoshimura exhaust, now they do have, as far as an aftermarket set of, I guess, heat shields, you would say, that you can actually put on this thing. As you can see here, I do have some marks and stuff on this, and no, that is not from me laying the bike over and scraping it. That is actually from my pants melting to the exhaust because of the lack of a heat shield. So that is something that I have not done. Others have done. So props to them for it, but you may want to look into it if you do end up running an exhaust that doesn't have a heat shield. So when it comes to the rear of the bike, the other thing that we are running is we do have the Tusk rear caliper guard, which you guys can get from Rocky Mountain ATV MC. We are also running a Tusk Msxc. Now, this is a 110 by 100 by 18 rear tire, okay? So your original is a 100 by 100. We are running a 110, so it is a lot wider. The Msxc T45 on this, okay? Now, this thing has held up great. I do have a video out as far as the review on the tires. The front is a T35. So we did end up swapping out tires that we burned through, and I will go ahead and say that these tires will be going back on this bike when I burn these things out. All right, guys, for this side over here, the only thing that I'm really going to show you guys is two things, is the kickstand adapter. Now, this does not help as far as extending it, so where you lean it over, it doesn't lean as much. No, what this does is it brings it all the way up, gets it completely out of the way. Now, the only other thing is the rear sprocket. We are running a Renthal 51 tooth ultralight rear sprocket, and we are also running a 12 tooth front sprocket. So with all that being said, aside from getting into the big bore kit, which I am saving for later, we will go ahead and tell you that there's been a few things that we do not like about this bike. Number one, getting into the weight. Of course, we don't like the weight. However, with the weight, where everybody says that this thing is way too heavy, I do agree. It is very heavy. It is still rocking a solid frame on this thing. What I will say is, though, is that Honda did at least do a pretty good job of distributing that weight as far as it feeling a lot more planted on this bike, okay? And with you raising the bike up, it does actually feel like, as far as your center of gravity goes on this thing, it does kind of balance itself out. And if you do have a really nice plush suspension on this thing, it makes it feel 10 times better. I mean, you can go over rock sections, you can float. A buddy of mine, when I just had the heavy duty fork springs in here for the front, and I did have the BBR, the rear spring, heavy duty rear spring in the back, he did say that compared to his completely bone stock one at the time, that this thing rode like a Cadillac. So yes, you get a huge difference there. The only thing that I had changed was, and the reason I took that out is, as I said, for my sag purposes and the fact that we were racing this. Now, if we go ahead and talk about weight though too, the other mod that I did not mention that I'll go ahead and mention right now are going to be your tugger straps. I will tell you that these things are a lifesaver, all right? In that last race that we had did at the Winter Off-Road National, my buddy, when he raced his 250F, he ended up getting stuck in the mud, but he was not running tugger straps. He told me he wishes to God that he was running tugger straps. If you guys wanted to check out anything on his bike, I do have a video of his build and what we've done to it. That is also going to be in the description, and it's in my prior videos. And of course, with the front tugger strap, well, you got to have the rear as well. So these ones right here, got them as well off of Rocky Mountain ATV MC. So aside from the weight that I didn't like, is the suspension. Of course, you've got to upgrade the suspension if you're a little bit heavier. You know, if you're maybe say like 120 pounds and less, not quite as tall, then yeah, this thing may be perfect for you right out of the box. But I will say that with the suspension came the final thing, the handlebars. I don't think there's too many people that'll really disagree with me there. That Honda stock bars, absolute trash, man. You guys can probably wreck this thing maybe 2 or 3 times, and if it's a decent enough wreck, it will bend those bars. The vibration in them is absolutely insane. That is why I went with the oversized bars. I did go with, of course, Scott. Yes, shout out to Scott. That is a sponsor. But I do have Scott grips on this bike. This thing has just absolutely soaked up every ounce of vibration and all in this thing that the stock bars could not handle. As well as, yes, of course, I've got the old flags on here, the old Tusks. I love these things. Yes, these ones are beat to hell. This is the original set that I put on this bike almost 2 years ago. The great thing I love about these is when they bend, you can just take a pair of vice grips or pliers and just bend them right back. I'm not a huge fan of wraparounds. I do like wraparounds. I would have to trim my handlebars down a little bit and cut them if I did run full wraparound. So nothing really against them. I'm just able to get my hand out of here just a little bit quicker without them. But regardless, these things have been a lifesaver. And the levers, which I'm sure you guys saw when I was showing you guys the quick clip of the handlebars, the levers themselves, all they are just Tusk replacement levers. Okay, I didn't go with anything fancy. I just went with just cheap replacements. That's it. I really don't have too much of an issue. Don't ever try and adjust them or bend them back at the ball at the end of them. Otherwise, you will snap it. But I will say that these things, as being as cheap as they are from Rocky Mountain ATV, I can I can definitely appreciate getting about 2 sets just on spare and carrying them in my toolbox. Other than that, guys, that's really all that I've got done to this bike. And like I said, I know I keep saying it. I get it. There is the Athlon fully tunable ECU. All that stuff is related to as far as force cam. We're going to get into that 1-year review here very soon. I promise you, we are creeping up on that time. So we will get into that. So some of the things that I would do and I would not do. First of all, what I would do if you are trail riding, get you a bigger rear tire. And this right here is just to show you that I have never once rubbed any part of that exhaust at all. Jumping into the very last couple things that I would absolutely do to this bike is you will want a skid plate. I don't care what kind it is, but the original skid plate hasn't seemed to hold up too well. It did for my buddy. It lasted him about a year. For myself, it lasted me about 2 weeks, and then I ended up cracking it completely on the right side by the frame. So I love my skid plate. That thing has been a lifesaver, especially in our Rocky Mountain areas where we do live. Jumping into the very last thing that I would recommend is your handlebars. Okay, to me, these are just the really big necessities as far as what you want to modify with the bike, in my personal opinion. So your rear tire, that's just going to get you a lot of stick and grip, really. I felt a lot more comfortable as far as hills, whether you are doing single track or whatnot, or just big open trails. I love that 110 rear tire, the handlebars, and the skid plate, guys. So all mods aside though, speaking on the bike in general, this thing has been absolutely phenomenal. The maintenance on this thing is extremely low. I'm actually just about to change the oil on this after my very next ride again. And this is honestly, with even as much as I do ride, this is probably only the third time this year that I have changed the oil in this thing. I don't put an extreme amount of hours on it, no, especially splitting a lot of the time up between both the bikes now. But I will say this thing is extremely reliable for an air-cooled bike. I mean, this thing is just a legend. So really a fuel-injected old-school XR. So this thing has been absolutely top-notch. I love this bike. My son, he loves this freaking thing. There really isn't too much that you can't do with this. Single track is absolutely a blast with this bike. I love doing single track with this even more than I do on that Cowie. As far as your open trails, it's perfect. I mean, you just can't go wrong. Whether you are a beginner or an advanced rider, it doesn't matter. This bike you are going to have an absolute blast on. It's just going to come down to what are you looking to get out of your bike. All right, if you love these old, the CRF and the old school XR type platforms, this bike is for you. There's not much that you can't do with this. That's my wrap, y'all. Now you guys got the scoop as far as this 2-year review. Please do hang tight because we have got this weekend coming up. We are doing a video here with Force Cam on camera this time, and we're going to be talking about a few things as far as their bore kits, the company itself, some tuning tips, tricks, and secrets that a lot of people may want to end up hearing from some things that we've just kind of compiled over the past year of being asked, and we're going to try and go ahead and just help and clear a lot of that stuff up to help you guys out. We do also have a couple more rides coming up as well. We've got a whole nother race series. We're actually doing an entire series this year, so we will have more on that here in just a bit. But I appreciate you guys as always. Any questions, drop them in the comments. Please be a friend, tell a friend. Thank you guys, and we'll catch y'all on the next go round. See ya.